This is AV Week, episode number 14 for Saturday, November 5th, 2011. Mime is money.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. It's time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of news, information, and commentary. I'm your host, Tim Albright. Thank you for listening. With us this week is Dawn Meade. Dawn is known as AV Dawn. She's a blogger, she's a consultant, and a darn fine lady to know. How are you, Dawn?
Very well, thank you, and thank you for the compliment.
Absolutely. George is with us today. George Tucker. He is Tucker Twos. I'm not going to butcher his blog. We'll give you that at the end of the show. But he's also works at World Stage. How are you, George?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Back with us for 2 weeks in a row. I think it's the son of the apocalypse. Is my buddy Michael Drainer. He is the sales manager for the AV division of Tech Electronics in St. Louis.
Setting records. Hello, everyone.
And back with us finally, the man, the hat, the myth, the legend, Johnny Mota.
How's it going, interwebs?
Good. How are you? By the way, congratulations on your 20,000th tweet.
Thank you very much. You know what? I don't even know how I feel. I feel kind of weird about it.
Well, you were promoting it, really. You know, the fact that you were counting down and stuff like that. So,
yeah, it was a thing. It happened.
It was a thing. It happened, and it was on Twitter. So that means it was like 20,000 years ago. So
definitely. Not laughing.
By the way, just so everybody knows, we're taping this on Saturday, November 5th. Happy Guy Fawkes Day, everyone.
Ooh, did Facebook crash?
Indeed.
It did not.
Oh.
Remember, the 5th of November. So,
Occupy.
Occupy Guy Fawkes. Real quick, last week when we taped this, the last episode, and actually the last episode was George, Dawn, and Michael and myself. Shortly thereafter, I get an email from George Tucker saying, "Hey, I'm getting some calls. Michael has some contacts as well. We're talking about Roscor. All of a sudden, this brewing and this is happening and this is happening, and phone calls are being made and things are being said on Twitter that nobody really knew what's going on. Roscor is a pretty substantial AV company and broadcast company outside of Chicago. Suddenly, all of a sudden, it felt like we're watching the implosion of this grand company. I'm going to have George and Michael kind of walk through what they heard, and then we'll take it through the steps of the story. George, take me through last Friday and even over the weekend and what you were hearing and what came out of that come Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, this is actually a lesson in social media as well as other things. I have a couple of friends whose Facebook statuses start to have ominous undertones. Things like, it's really bad to know the things I know kind of stuff. And, you don't always pay attention to that. You're thinking, okay, family stuff.
Yeah.
But about, I don't know, an hour before, 2 hours before things started happening, I got a call from one of these guys and saying, yeah, here's something you might want to know about. Roscor's going down. And I was like, no way. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, they're going to tell you that they're going to try to do something, but it's over. And you're stunned. I mean, this is it's like hearing Microsoft decided to close the doors.
Yeah.
And then I got a second friend calling me going, yeah, maybe you want to know this. I'm like, yeah, so-and-so just told me. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, we're all talking. We're all desperate to figure out what's going on. And the last thing I heard from one of these guys was, yeah, there's the police cars because they let the local authorities know just in case. Well, that's the world we live in, right?
Well, but
it was such a stunning thing, I think, that everybody, that notification was sort of this stunning revelation of, a lot of people didn't know, and it was just going to be a slap in the face. From what I know is there were some prospects and jobs that did not pan out the way they were supposed to. That caused some money issues, and that led to an ability to secure equipment for jobs in process. And then, once you reach that limit, you can't go any further.
Michael, kind of take me through your side of the things. How did you hear, and the people that your contacts in Roscor?
It was very similar to George's experience. And, I think this is a classic case of overextension, like you just said, George. The story I got from a very close contact at Roscor is that they overextended themselves on some international projects that depleted their bonding ability and some other financial issues here in the States. And as George stated, they were unable to secure financing, maintain their credit lines, get equipment, which caused problems with their customer base here. And it's really quite sad because Roscor has been a big player in the broadcast business, particularly in the AV world, for quite some time. Definitely a force to be reckoned with, and it's very sad to see such a top-notch organization like that go down like this. Now, the article that we've got here from the Daily Herald says that they're laying off and restructuring, but the word that I'm getting from the inside is that they're actually going to shut the doors of Roscor and reopen under a different name with a much smaller staff. So time will tell what actually happens.
Well, yeah,
it sounds a lot like they're trying to become a consulting company, which I don't think is going to work. I also understand that there's a bunch of people from the inner circle of Roscor that are going to try and reform under new name and some of the same employees, but I don't know how far that's going to go yet.
So is that different than the guy like Mr. Ralston opening up or what?
Yeah, it would be separate people like just getting together saying, you know what, we work well together. We think we can get some money up. Let's do it.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because he even said that they're not shutting down. And
right.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe it.
This is a bigger question for all you guys. And Don, we'll start with you. We've talked a lot about service on this podcast, and you guys have written a lot about it on the blogs, both on your rave blogs and elsewhere. Do you think this is a situation where they just couldn't keep up with the service part? And Mr. Ralston even says, this business was built 40 years ago based on, selling product at high margins. I mean, granted, 40 years ago, the AV industry had high margins. Now we don't, and so now we need to shift to service. Do you think maybe that they weren't able to make that shift?
I think that's definitely a possibility, a probability, in fact, just based on what I see, in this article. And, I visited a couple of other articles about this closure or restructuring or whatever you want to call it. It does seem as though they were having a major problem transitioning from the high margin box sale model to a service-based reality. I mean, if you go to the Roscor site right now, it still looks like a box sale kind of company, although there is a giant liquidation sale, huge savings, everything must go banner on it. It's still coming across like, like a B&H where you just go there to get your equipment and be done with it. And, that's a great model if you can afford it and if you're set up that way and you have other revenue streams or reputation to carry that through. But nowadays, it's so difficult that if you're doing that as well as integration, as far as I know, B&H just sells stuff.
Yeah.
They don't attempt to do integration, whereas Roscor was attempting integration, different branches, international projects, and maintaining this box sale model. And I think that's probably where a lot of their problem came.
Well, and I can speak firsthand as a former Roscor customer. When I worked in the broadcast business, we spent millions with these guys. Had great relationships with them, great integrators. They always provide us great competitive pricing. But I think part of the problem, and I've seen this not only with them, but other companies who have tried to work both in the broadcast and the AV segment, is broadcast has taken a steep dive since 2009. Mm-hmm. Ever since the FCC transition took place to DTV, there's no more build-outs going on. Broadcasters are cutting like crazy. So if you didn't have a solid AV segment to keep you afloat, you're hurting now. So, that could very possibly be part of the issue here, that they really didn't have that diversity to keep them going when the broadcast side of the business took a dive.
I've got a question about that because it sounds a lot, when I'm listening to this, it sounds a lot to me like the integrators with the flat panels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were expensive. Mm-hmm. No one could get them. We could charge a premium. Anyone who built their model only on that, when the manufacturer started saying, hey, we need to make more profit, we need to sell this in box stores, their businesses died by the thousands.
Right.
I mean, literally the thousands. And this almost sounds like the same thing. If you're premising your business on the broadcast version of Y2K, which was the white space and DTV transition, you're going to make a good deal of money for a little while, but you got to be prepared for that downslide, or this was your model all along, and you decided when it ends, you're done.
Yeah, well, and the reality is there's a similarity there to even what's going on in the VTC world. And that's, back in the day, broadcast, you had to have big, expensive cameras, big, expensive audio equipment, fancy microphones. If you wanted to set up a remote shoot or a shoot from someone's home, heaven forbid, you had to truck a lot of equipment there. You had to buy it, make sure it was there, installed correctly, and run correctly. Now with, the microphones we have, right now we're doing Skype recording for a podcast. Yay. And it's coming across radio quality, the same
I might differ on that one, but
to a point.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Your average non-AV Joe that's listening can't necessarily tell the difference for most of us.
Right.
And the same thing's happening with VTC. It used to be this big, expensive proposition. Nowadays, a lot of VTC, it isn't even really VTC. It's web chat.
It is.
Well, that's the thing. Is not only this summer we all saw life-size integration with Skype. Polycom just bought a company primarily, most of us believe at least, for their software so they could integrate web-based conferencing. This is we're all watching in real time. Kind of the not the dumbing down, but the simplification, I guess.
Consumerization.
Yeah, of video conferencing. Johnny, you could put this into somebody's multi-million-dollar video living room, and they could have video conferencing from their Barca lounger, and never have to go into the office.
True. I was almost debating doing this over Microsoft Connect just to prove a point, but I'm using a Mac today. But yeah, that's almost like the standard. Like, let's just use Skype.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're building your model on selling the expensive VTC equipment, or in the case of Roscor, the expensive broadcast equipment, you're going to have a problem. Not to bring up politics, but I was watching Fox News or CNN or something, and they went to a live shot from Governor Palin's house, and she had a whole studio set up in her house that was set up with prosumer equipment that she was able to make television appearances and appear on this talk show. Whereas in the old days, again, that would take getting your local affiliate out there with cameras and crew and lights and the whole 9 yards. It's a different world, and the companies like Roscor that aren't adjusting to that are facing the consequences.
Yeah, and not to add to that, one of the guys that I look up to a lot in the podcasting, he calls it netcasting world, is Leo Laporte. Leo just built a couple of $1 million facility for all of his different. Sweet facility, yeah, very
nice.
sweet.
Very nice.
But here's the thing. Those millions were not spent on the camera or the video equipment. He has a $25,000-$30,000 TriCaster, their big HD thing. He's got something like 30 or 35 cameras that cost him between $2,000 and $3,000 a piece. Yeah. Technically, they're HD. Michael can go off on his little tangent later, but technically
we'll have a whole discussion on HD later.
Technically, they're HD, and he has them everywhere. Seriously, everywhere. He spent the same amount on these cameras as probably Oprah did on one of hers.
You're talking about the new Twit Cottage?
Yeah.
Yes.
This thing is
pretty intense.
It's enveloped in all these cameras, and he didn't spend, relatively speaking, that much for 30 or 35 shots of everything.
Right.
So, yeah, all of this stuff is really kind of coming commercialized. Here's the question, and this is kind of goes back to something else. Are we going to see that with everything else? Not to be, simplistic or the sky is falling. Just a simple question, because we've watched, the box sale or the Best Buyization of flat panels and of video conferencing. Are we going to see that in switching and in HD processing and in control and all this other jazz?
I think you're going to see a lot of that stuff just flat out. The technology that we use is going to change drastically. We're starting to move toward cloud-based switching, over the LAN, over the network, over the WAN, whatever the case may be. Your traditional matrix switcher is going by the wayside. Everything is going to be web-based controls. It's all going to be XML. Everything's going to the IP world. And as we move further and further down that road, the value of the integrator becomes less and less to the typical consumer. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to go away.
Watch how you say that.
I am very cautious here. That doesn't mean it's going to go away when we get into corporate and into company integration integration because there's different needs that need to occur there, right? But a good case in point, my executive vice president has an iPhone. He uses FaceTime all the time. You know how I sold him on Life Size? Is that he could have Life Size on his phone. And he could be talking to his grandchildren and then flip over to one of our strategic planning meetings. We're a Life Size dealer. That is huge, huge. Mobility products. We're not selling, $100,000 endpoints anymore. We're selling $100 licenses for iPhones.
Okay, let me wrap this.
I mean, the whole thing is transitioning.
So for corporate and education and healthcare and stuff like that, there's a place. But there's not a place for people like Johnny. Johnny is a home guy primarily, and Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But so there's not in the distant future, however, 5-10 years, less people are going to go to Johnny. Is that?
I can't speak to the consumer market directly.
I know, but
I'm
is that what you're saying, though?
No, what I'm saying is the manufacturers are dumbing down to the technology to the point that anybody can pull it out and use it.
But they need people like you and him to integrate it and to program it.
If it needs that. We don't know what the future holds, right? Because think about FaceTime. FaceTime's just an app. You download an app, I now have two-way video conversation. We're doing it with Skype right now. I don't need an integrator to get Skype up and going and have a video call with all of our friends, right? Now, the moment I take that from the personal and the consumer world and I start integrating it into corporate communications, and I've got security issues I'm dealing with, and I've got to integrate with corporate networks, now things start to transition. Now is where the specialty starts to come to the top.
Okay.
And if I can add to that.
Yeah, please do. I was going to ask you to, Don.
I was going to say, I think there will always be a place for Johnny, aside from the fact that he's fabulous.
Yes.
But the
absolutely.
Fabulous.
Well,
In a different way.
I can't. Yeah. There will always be a place for the home integrator because whereas before there were so many integrators for home because nobody knew how to do it, but everybody wanted it, now we're going to have the home integrator that are there for the people that just aren't willing to DIY. And we'll also have them there as, like every DIY guy also has a plumber on speed dial for when they can't quite make it go.
Right.
We'll have home integrators on speed dial for when hubby screws up the rack.
Yeah.
I think there'll still be a place. It won't be like the glory days when everybody that wanted a home theater called an integrator. There'll be a lot of DIY. And not just from those of us that work in the industry. But I think the simplification will allow people to do it themselves, but there will still be a need for the expertise.
Well, and those needs are going to be different. The level of expertise is going to be elevated because everybody goes out now. Let me rephrase it. Not everybody. There's a lot of people that go out and buy your off-the-shelf Linksys router and they get their home network up and going. Yeah. Okay? Right. But there are those who can't do it. They either A, don't want to, B, they don't have the technical wherewithal, or C, they just don't feel like it. And that's where those experts are going to come into play. But then as the technology continues to progress, then, as long as that integrator is staying on the leading edge, there's always going to be a place for them. If they stay in the legacy, then they're going to end up just like Roscor.
George, now would be a time to pimp your DIY show.
It sounds so crude.
I'm sorry. Now would be the time to promote your DIY show.
Well, we haven't decided on that yet. Yes, but we are going to look at doing something about the DIY guys, the whole Adreno movement, the maker movement that's going on. I mean, these guys are actually something to really watch out for. These are people who actually will go to the garage and weld a piece to mount a thing in, as well as set up all the electronics. Most of them don't know, DHCP from, a subnet, but they get that they're supposed to fill certain things in, and they know where to go with it, and it's made easy. I mean, there's a lot of plug and play here, and just like Dawn said, years ago you couldn't do your own plumbing, but you can go to Home Depot and get a couple of the pieces, and you can fix your own sink. I mean, I can replace my sink. I can do you want me to sweat pipes? I might call in an expert for that. But, I could do it, but I don't want to be annoyed by it. I got other things to do, like this show.
Thank you for that.
Make sure you got your priorities in mind, okay?
But yeah, there is a movement there where certain things that we always thought were high-tech, getting a radio installed in your house in the 1930s, that took a couple of guys who brought it over and made sure it was right. You can do it now just by going to the store, buying it off the shelf, and plopping it on a table. Is again the point with coming back to the beginning of this. If you are making your business model on one type of action, it will eventually go away, and you have to be ready for it. And if you're not, you will go away.
Evolve or die.
That's absolutely right. It's changing too fast not to.
All right. From Rave Pub and also from our very own Don Meade. Don went over to D.C. this week for the first ever GovComm, put on by our fine folks at Infocom. By the name of it, you can tell that it's probably some sort of trade show of some sort, attended by over 2,000 people, 100 exhibitors. Don, give me your initial reaction and kind of what you thought about the trade show GovComm.
Well, my initial reaction is it's about time.
Really?
Having worked as an integrator in this region, the DC Mid-Atlantic region is full of government work, it's full of higher ed work, and it's full of corporate work for all the companies supporting the government and the higher ed. And not every company, not every even integrator has a chance to go to Orlando or Vegas or even Anaheim for the big Infocom show. So what did we do for many years? Those of us that didn't necessarily go to the big Infocom show, we'd go to FOSSI and look at the 4 AV companies that were there and a bunch of IT crap that we didn't care about. Or we'd go to the Government Video Expo that happens in December and look at the 4 AV companies that were there and a bunch of broadcast crap we didn't care about. And so there is a real need for a trade show of AV equipment, pro AV equipment in this region, and especially tailored to the federal space, because there are needs that the federal buyers have to meet in their AV equipment and technology that just don't apply in the corporate or home theater or education world.
Like what?
So, secure VTC, just the secure level of anything. The first time my previous company ever did an install in a secure facility, it was kind of eye-opening because you couldn't put any wires in the wall. You had to make it look professional with visible wires at all times so that, they could make sure there were no bugging, there was no chance of, intercepting or leaking or, there's a lot more involved to it than simply putting in a system like you would any other boardroom. And so the need has been there. And Infocom finally, after hearing this for years from their Mid-Atlantic dealers, put this show together. It was the first year of a show. And anytime you have a first year of a show, there aren't going to be as many manufacturers showing, vendors present. And there aren't going to be that many attendees. And it was a light show. But I think as word gets out that the show is there, the government buyers, the military buyers, the contractors that work for the government and the military that do the buying for them are going to start coming out to this show, and it's going to be a real asset to the area.
All right, can I? Was this a Mid-Atlantic show? Was it an East Coast Eastern time zone show, or is this something? I mean, for this year, obviously, because everything that was, you guys had a snowstorm for crying out loud and all that jazz. But is this something that in years future that other people outside of the Beltway should come and see, or is this just about the East Coast and about DC?
Well, by its very nature,
show.
there's going to be a lot of it that is sort of Beltway centric to it, but I don't think by any means it's going to be something that only DC area people should come to. I mean, there are military bases all around this country and all around the world. And, by them going to regular Infocom, they get to see some of the latest technology that's out there, but they don't always get to see that secure stuff. That, there was a vendor there that, without my Info or GovComm book in front of me, I don't recall their name, but this company would never show at regular Infocom. They specialize in strategic all-in-one communications setups. And I mean, this company manufactures the tent, the flooring that goes down on the sand or rock or wherever you happen to be deployed. It had the monitor in table for you to come over and look at the maps in real time as troop movements or whatever you have on the global satellite imagery. They made the racks, and all of it's ruggedized, all of it's, weather protected. These sorts of things you're not going to see at your average Infocom.
No, but that's pretty cool.
It was incredibly cool. And, I feel bad that I don't know their name to give them an immediate shout out, but it was a fantastic thing. And military people from all over the world are going to want this sort of technology. So I think as it develops and people get to know about it and hear about it through, government channels and channels like this podcast, there will be a need for people coming in from the outside. That said, some of the exhibitors that were there were integrators, but not DC area integrators. Okay. There were some federal integrators. I know there was a group from Michigan. There was a group from South Carolina. I think there was a group from Texas. And they were there to meet other integrators in the DC area to form strategic partnerships. They've got their GSA schedules, they've got their 8A and their, SBA certifications and all of that. They've got their security clearances, but they don't have a presence in the Mid-Atlantic to get in on some of these big contracts where you need someone here. So they came to the show to make partnerships with other companies and get some of the federal pie. That's where the money is during a recession is always government buy-in. So
the government always has money.
Exactly. So I think once it gets established and out there in people's consciousness, if you talk to your average government employee in D.C., they know when Fosse comes around that they can take their lunch hour and go over to the convention center and see all the IT toys and get some swag.
Yeah.
They know when the government video expo is happening, the same thing. So once word gets in their consciousness about GovComm, the show's going to grow greatly. And I think it's going to be good for both DC and outside of DC.
Very cool.
Do you think that GovComm would do better presenting at InfoComm, like Building's team there with a bigger presence as, it's a new show, but at InfoComm there'd be more attendees and it would just bring more traction to it, or no?
That's hard to say. If I were the goddess of InfoComm and made the decisions, I would definitely put maybe a GovComm booth at InfoComm to encourage people to come to GovComm the show. But I think it does need to be its own show because, again, the military and federal buyers don't always have the ability to go Vegas or Orlando, and that's who ultimately we want to get to with a show like GovComm.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say that would be good to get interest within the industry, other integrators and other manufacturers interested in showing at GovComm. But I don't necessarily think that that's the solution for, instead of having the show here, just making another pavilion at InfoComm.
I'm going to ask what may be a simplistic question or naive question. Is this what kind of is EduComm the education version of this? And the reason I'm asking because the only one I've ever been to was in 2007 when it was in conjunction with InfoComm. So the meetings and the lectures were running the same time as the InfoComm show, and so to go see the product you had to go to the InfoComm show floor. Is EduComm the same way? Does anybody know? Is it kind of like GovComm?
I think so. They had an education track that was purely for the higher ed market, and at GovComm they had an education track purely for the government buyer on secure VTC, secure new technologies. But I think it's a similar thing. But your higher education people again have more ability to just take off and go to Vegas or
not in the middle of November. You can't. Well, that's almost finals. So.
Yeah, well, but InfoComm is in June, so for the education people, that's fabulous.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
You're listening to AV Week with us. That is Dawn Meade. She's a blogger with Rave Publications. She's also a consultant and has her own site, avdawn.com. George Tucker is with us as well, Johnny Mota, and Michael Drainer. Johnny, we'll start with you on this one. The Apple and Microsoft patent have filed patents for touchless controls. So the race has begun to see who can get this patent done first, and then of course they're going to turn around and sue the other guy.
Right, and it's going to be an ongoing thing for the rest of eternity until one consumes the other company.
Yeah, but take me through this, and also my other question, as with anything when it comes to touchless and stuff like that, we've talked about this before. How does this affect maybe eventual touchless control as well for AV?
For AV, I mean, since say like day one of Connect, there was always the hackers and the people that the DIY people, or the people that just want to tinker. How does this work? I'm going to rip it apart and make it better. So since day one of Connect, there's been videos of people. Look what I can do. I modded this thing. I made. I've seen several videos of people changing channels on TV just through gesture control and things like that. And it started off pretty basic, and it got a little more advanced, and then it was like, well, now I can do this, and now I can control my TV. And so there's mods out there already, and I think Microsoft saw that initially and they're like, whoa, you got to stop there because we're going to patent this before you take our idea and make it better, and we're going to see you. At the same time, Apple is doing their very own thing with that. And I think there's been talks of like a physical Apple branded iTV with gesture control, and I believe Siri would be built into it, at least from my standpoint. So it'd be like gesture control along with voice activation. And then it's 2 months after that until it's like the end of days and Terminator's coming to come kill you and things like that.
I think I saw somebody put who thinks that John Connor is going to be killed by an Apple TV with Siri built in. So if you don't know what that means, go read Terminator.
You're all done.
Yeah. So George, you don't like gestures, so I probably want to ask you this question.
I'm not a gesture.
I am not exactly.
See, that was episode number 3, I think.
I don't know.
You know what, though? There was also, you mentioned Leo Laporte on Twitter, one of the shows a couple of days ago. They were actually on Windows Weekly, I think. They were showing some 1980-something movie about the future that Microsoft had made, these little films.
Ooh, Microsoft
and one of them was
made a movie?
watching. Yeah, well, they're little advertising movies, little movielettes, we'll call them, right? And they were showing people like doing all these gestures to make things move. And all I think is, now we have to have a course and our kids are going to start learning, mime. It just doesn't work for me that all these little hand gestures going all over,
I'm sorry, that took me a second.
I'm in a glass box.
Mime is money. That's all you have to say, right? Mime is money, baby.
Well, have you guys seen the Intel commercial a few months back where it was gesture control of the lights of the room and different windows and such, and it was kind of tuned into audio where he was just dancing around but making the room do everything for him, all based on gesture control?
Well, yeah, and not only that, not to throw too many movies into it, but we also have Minority Report, where
there you go.
Tom Cruise is standing at a virtual screen moving these items back and forth, with basically gestures.
Right.
I was thinking Iron Man. Just move that into the trash.
There you
Throw that
go.
away. That's the computer and gesturing I want.
Can we do that? Can we have that already? Hoverboards and time machines and gesture control.
So what happens when I scratch my head?
Exactly.
The world comes to an
don't
end.
do that. That's so bad.
It's like pressing the infamous red button.
Don't hit the red button and don't scratch your head.
You get ejected out of the airlock.
Here's a silly question. Does this mean that I'm going to actually start to understand the baseball signals given out by people like Tony La Russa? Because I've never understood that. I really haven't. And so
or gang symbols, one or the other.
Well, gang symbols actually gets.
Please don't ask why.
Whoa. Why?
Oh, wow. On that note,
Well, next story.
To AVWeek. We're going to step away for a second. I met a very nice person this week. We're going to talk to her. We're going to start something called the AV
Job of the week.
There, George, it was your idea and you missed it.
One more time.
One more time.
Wait.
One more time.
The AV
Job of the week.
There we go.
That was bad.
You can train monkeys, but
bad
you can't.
happy birthday or something.
Droid.
We're going to talk with Pat Dealey. She is from avjobs.co.uk. It's time for the AV Week Job of the Week. Joining me today is Pat Dealey. Pat is the Sales and Marketing Director for AV Jobs. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Tim. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I don't know if anybody can tell in this short introduction, but you are not across the way from me, but you are actually over in England.
I am.
And tell us a little bit about your website and what you guys do at AV Jobs.
Okay, I'd love to. We are avjobs.co.uk, and we have a recruitment company who basically help clients and candidates to find jobs and positions in audiovisual and unified communications. And that's across the UK and Europe and the Middle East.
Okay. And is there, how do people, obviously they can go to avjobs.co.uk, but if there is a company that is that has an office in England or in the Middle East, how would they get a hold of you guys?
They can either email me, pat@avjobs.co.uk, or call me on 0844 884 9150. All of our details are on the website, and I'd be happy to talk to them.
Okay. All right. So like I said at the beginning, we're going to try something new. We're going to have you come on, and give us one of your guys' jobs, your pick, not necessarily your pick job, but a job that you have. We'll call it the AV job of the week. So what is your guys' job for this week?
Okay, well, we've actually got two jobs that are reasonably similar. They're channel sales manager jobs, both based in the UK, one in the Midlands and one really anywhere within England. They are both for vendors, so people who manufacture. They pay around 35,000 basic and 50,000 plus OTE with a company car and other benefits. Both great jobs, both great vendors, and I'd be happy to see CVs from good candidates.
Okay, and again, if you want to apply for the job, you would go to avjobs.co.uk.
That's right, or you would email me, pat@avjobs.co.uk.
Okay, very good. Two sales, they're sales rep jobs. Is that?
Channel account manager jobs, we call them.
Okay, account manager jobs.
Yeah, looking after resellers in the audiovisual industry, and both of them are selling for manufacturers.
Okay. All right. Well, that's avjobs.co.uk, or shoot Pat an email, pat@avjobs.co.uk. Pat, thank you very much.
That's superb. Thanks a lot, Tim. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. All right, we're back with AV Week. With us this week is Dawn Meade. She is AV Dawn. George Tucker from World Stage. Johnny Mota from Viz Systems. And is it Viz Systems?
It's VSys.
VSys.
Yes.
And Michael Drainer from Tech Electronics. George came up with this one. Fred Wilson wrote a blog post, and if you don't know who Fred Wilson is, he's a big-time venture capitalist who has been behind some of the stuff like Twitter and not Facebook, but was he Facebook?
Tumblr.
But Tumblr.
Twitter, Tumblr, Foursquare, Delicious, Meatburner,
Zynga. So
Zynga.
He's the reason that we all harvest, our beets.
Virtual crops.
Our virtual crops. But basically, the blog goes on to the blog is basically talking about if you don't get this whole technology, you're going to have to pay somebody who is into this technology. Does that make sense to you guys? Or George, we'll start with you since it's your article. Does that make sense to you, or is he just kind of screaming about we all need to be geeks?
Well, I think he's partly saying we all need to be geeks because it's the world we live in. The title of the article was "Program or Be Programmed." So, as we were talking earlier about Roscor and what's changing and where the models are shifting, Fred Wilson's one of these guys. Just to take a slight, tertiary sort of little turn here.
You said tertiary.
I said tertiary. It's part of the title of my blog. Of course, I'm going to use it.
He's just impressed by big words.
Exactly.
Words.
We should never record on a Saturday ever again.
I haven't even been drinking yet. Jeez.
Oh, man.
You're the only one.
Where's my red wine? So, program or be programmed.
Yes.
If you don't understand some of the basic core technologies of what you're dealing with or how to alter it, like you have a TV, you should understand how to bring up the guide on your cable box or your TiVo or whatever it is. If you don't understand that or how to maneuver around it, you're going to pay somebody to make it simpler for you, and you don't need to. And now, again, this is a geeky guy. He's somebody who used to program some stuff, and he is a little bit of a JavaScript guy. But there's a way to learn this stuff. I mean, look, there's something called Scratch. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with this. MIT.
MIT, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Scratch.mit.edu. It's a programming primer for kids. Drag and drop, make a character move, add stuff to it, but it lets you do things like change on a condition. If he's walking 10 paces and hits a green square, do the following, because you can add the green square. There's also a great couple of programs called Code Academy. Code Academy teaches you JavaScript right from the computer. It's free. You can actually start to learn how to use Java in some very basic ways. Why is this important? Well, you know what? Like Boxy, there's ways to modify it. I'm a big proponent of this. Yes, we mentioned the DIY show earlier, because even when you're buying high-end gear, you want to be able to do some of the stuff yourself. And this has been something that's really annoyed me for years when you buy high-end stuff.
Actually, I live this.
Good.
I live this story. it's definitely something that we should consider, not just learning programming language, but technology in general. And for people out there that, are more artsy or creative or just more language oriented, I say do this and you will have a career forever, because Lord knows I've built my career on this, translating from tech to human for the average person. There's always going to be a place for that. And, I may not be able to single-handedly install an entire facility, but I know enough installation tools that I can communicate that with, the tech types and the engineers versus, the end users. So I think it's fantastic what Fred Wilson says, learn your technology, learn your programming, and live it. Because, the example he uses is you don't have to speak French fluently. Just know enough French that if you go to France, you can speak it badly until they understand and speak English.
I don't think it's any secret, any question. I am a fan of Crestron Electronics. I am a big fan of Crestron Electronics. I like most. Oh, be quiet. Most of what they do. This is. I don't know if this is even about them necessarily, but the story's about them. So let's start there. In Market Watch a few weeks ago, the writer, and I'll use that term lightly, wrote an article, and I'll use the term wrote lightly, in which the title is, it says, "Get Paid to Upgrade to Digital." And basically this article is about Crestron's turn-in program. Actually, Johnny, a few weeks ago, made reference to the, bring out your dead for Crestron's turn-in program. And that makes a whole lot of sense, and I'm a big fan of that, and that's great and everything. However, this piece of paper in front of me is not an article. It's a press release with somebody's name signed to the bottom of it. I have no problem with press releases as long as that's what they are and that's kind of what they're put out as. This, however, is put out as a story that this gentleman is kind of trying to make a article, and it may be the fact that he had a deadline and he said, what press release is at the top of my list or at the top of my stack, and grabbed it and regurgitated it and spit it out. This is not necessarily about Crestron, but about tech reporting and technology and AV reporting in general. Dawn, this is, does anybody else have a problem with this, or is this me, I guess?
It's not just you. I mean, if you're going to claim to be a writer of any sort,
then write.
You have to write something. Exactly. I mean, who among us writing on technology hasn't once in a while raped and pillaged a press release for a phrase or a keyword or something like that to get the point across, because their marketing department spent a lot of time and money to make it sound good, But the whole idea of writing an article is not just necessarily to believe everything at face value or to just regurgitate what's given to you. It's to bring something of value to that, to explain the program and tell me why that's important, or tell me why I should do this, or give me something that lets you know there's a human there instead of just a machine that takes in press releases and spits out allegedly articles on the other end. I mean, it bugs me too, frankly, It smacks of somebody that just didn't do anything until their deadline was upon them and said, "Oh crap, what's on top of the pile? I'll write about this."
Or a recent J school graduate who's still trying to get his feet wet.
Even that, you don't have to go to journalism school to write. I mean, no. I didn't, and I think I do an okay job, but I don't always regurgitate press releases. So there we are.
Well, at least he did put at the top press release at the top of the article.
Okay, so yes, Michael has pointed something out. Yes, the word press release is there in really tiny letters in the upper left-hand corner. However, a press release does not belong on MarketWatch's website. It belongs on the company's website. If I want to read press releases from Crestron, I should go to Crestron, not to MarketWatch, which is a journalistic endeavor. It used to be of CBS. I honestly have no idea who owns it now. I think it's actually the Wall Street Journal. And put it on their site to make it look like some sort of article where this guy's done some reporting and he's called the sources and he's verified. I'm spitting out, journalistic practices here that, are probably as ancient as all of us. But instead of just taking a press release, and I missed that, honestly, because it's so freaking small, that he just kind of slapped Market Watch on the top of it and said, here's my article for the day.
But I'm not even seeing the author. Who's the author of the article?
Crestron.
Yeah, exactly. So
Randy. Or
well,
George.
because
not Tucker Feldstein.
There was a day it might have been.
I mean, we put out press releases all the time too, and we work with manufacturers and different suppliers and things like that to get media attention about projects that we're doing, different programs and things like that. And you issue a press release in hopes that different media outlets will publish that release and get you some attention to your program. And so saying that it doesn't belong on Market Watch, I don't know that that's really a fair statement.
No, okay, a press release does not belong on a verbatim on somebody's site like that. If you're a journalistic endeavor, this on our podcast, unless I am dead and you guys take over and totally bastardize what I'm doing, I will
well,
never.
There's confidence speaking.
Wow.
Yeah, thanks.
No, I'm not saying that you would do
this,
that.
doesn't he?
I'm saying that's the only over my dead body. In other words, is the best way to put that. Would we have just flat out regurgitation of press releases without talking about the fact that this is a press release or what we think about it?
Right.
Or here's a crazy idea: take the press release and then do some research. I mean, this guy is talking about the analog sunset, where he says it's a mandate. It's not a mandate. It's not a government mandate. It's a mandate from the AACSLA. It's not a governmental mandate, and he equates it to the digital transition for over-the-air broadcasters. That's not something. Had he done 5 minutes worth of research, he would have found that out.
Right.
So my issue is the fact that this does not belong verbatim as a press release on a blog, in the paper, on a news program, or on a podcast where it's here's fact.
So what you're saying is journalists do your job.
Yes.
If you want to talk about a story that Crestron released or a press release that they put out, reference that press release, but then talk about it from a journalistic perspective.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I see where you're going.
And also, he mentioned press releases in tiny letters in the top corner. The other thing that gets me about this page is, even the Crestron logo is kind of small and pushed off to the side,
right.
But there's a great big logo that says Business Wire,
yes.
And, whatever company. And that tells me, if I'm looking at this, if I surfed into it by accident, that this is a Business Wire news story that should give me some news.
Yes.
Whereas if the site had an entire section of press releases that's headed press releases, and puts the company logo there, and then maybe Business Wire off to the side or something, if that's the name of the blog or the Market Watch, whatever, that would be fine. But because that's the head what you see first, Business Wire, it makes it sound like it's news. And it's really not news.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It's press release.
I've seen,
I see that.
I've seen a number of sites who say the latest press releases, and they put them under a press release heading.
Really? I'm trying to vision that.
Now, that I'll at least accept, because, as we know, I loathe press releases. I loathe them. Cutting edge, innovative,
And
leader.
if you really want to get George, put out a press release about 3D.
Yes, well, there you go.
Or gestures.
Or gestures. I'll do mine on the digital, because I could talk for days on that one.
Hey, look, come on.
3D gesture.
Yeah.
3D gesture.
Hey.
Oh!
Nice.
See what I did there?
There, we got that's good.
I think I'm just going to go vaporize right now.
Yeah, but with the press releases, they should have done is at least put their own spin on it and say, read the full press release, or here's my thoughts,
right.
at least.
Right.
Hallelujah, brother.
All right. Well, we have one more thing after I get, I'm never going to get invited to anything restaurant now. The Panasonic, they're slashing the TV panel output. Basically, Panasonic's they've cut 1,000 jobs in their plasma TV line. A few years ago, Pioneer, who for my money made the best plasma at least in the last 10 years, stopped making plasmas. So it's for people like who are foodies. It's like Alton Brown stopping cooking. I like
Alton Brown.
leave me alone. Yeah. So is this, guys, another big name quality manufacturer getting out of the plasma business Johnny, does this mean that we are witnessing the downfall of the plasma, or is this just a decision by Panasonic to focus on LED and LCD?
I think that it's just like one of those things that like let's just say that they're losing to Samsung.
Johnny's in the middle of a street carnival.
Plasmas are kind of dying, and it makes me sad because plasmas are beautiful for their darks and they're known for that. But I've talked to just normal people and they're, oh, it's too dark for me. I'm like, what? Slap you in the face, really?
Yeah. George, do you concur about that?
I don't know if people. I think what I agree with Johnny in a certain way. Is that I don't think most people, even some technically educated people, care about the difference. A couple of weeks ago there was an article, and I think we discussed it on one of the shows about how plasma's making a comeback. Plasma's making a comeback, and it will in certain respects, I think, but it's going to be a very specific digital signage kind of application for the money, for what it does. You're going to find more clients going for projection, with giving size over quality, and for the most other standard people, LED is going to do just fine. Or LCD, sorry.
Right. Yeah, and that's unfortunate because I'm with I'm of the opinion that plasma is still a superior picture in many regards. Personally, have a plasma in my basement at home and absolutely love it. The color reproduction, the contrast ratios, it's just very, very hard to beat. But I also understand where you're going with that, George, and that the projection technologies, especially when we get into the really nice high-end stuff. Let's go 4K. Let's go, HD projection, whatever the case may be. The size to price ratio is much more attractive when you get into projection.
It's sort of like the broadcast thing. Like on broadcast, plasma looks really good.
It does.
But
it's gorgeous.
But with other stuff, normally when you're home, no one's going to really notice the difference again. Sorry about that. On TV, if I'm watching the NFL today, plasmas are going to show up beautifully on that camera. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, what am I going to really use it for? And the high end, like the iPod, we talked about this again before, like the iPod, a lot of our high end people are saying, that's great, the sound quality is perfect, this is where all my music is.
Well, and I think that's what's so disappointing about just technology in general. We have dumbed down the society and the consumers of media to accept inferior quality. And, you go back to
This is
we as an industry have allowed this to happen. We as the manufacturers.
Steve Jobs did this.
Well, this is true. He did, unfortunately. But, I remember growing up that, quadraphonic sound, man, that was incredible. And everybody was just so bent on trying to make sure that the audio was perfect. Man, they had to have the right speaker cable and the right speakers and the right players, and the turntable had to be right. And then even into the 80s and the 90s when we got into CD technology, it was all about, clarity and definition. And now if I've got an MP3 with a 128 sample rate, that's acceptable. And it's not in my opinion, but the consumers have, by and large, accepted this as a standard that they're willing to consume. And why up the ante as a manufacturer when you can get away with inferior product?
Well, but to that end, it also may be content related. When they were doing quadraphonic, what were they recording in? Dead rooms.
Right.
Yeah. What did you get? This over-processed, a lot of slap echo.
Right.
Plate echo stuff, but It was a dead room, so this could be partially content if it's not specific to the display or showing that advantage. I mean, look how many years we had to prove to people that HD TV was actually better. People just didn't see it until the content was native HD and really blew you away, and you had to do that over the top.
Right.
HD stuff in the lagoons of whatever, and the alligator coming out of it, looking like there was actual some kind of perceptual depth going on.
You're going to start talking about 3D again, aren't you?
That would be blasphemy, and I can't do that. I would just vaporize into little tiny bits.
So Don, from a consultant standpoint, I mean, you've been on both sides of this fence. What do you see the impact is of the death of plasma, if that is the net result here?
This is one of those issues where I can't just take a strictly business perspective on it because it just makes me sad. Mm-hmm. I'm as we're recording this, I'm sitting here watching Mr. AV Dawn play video games on our Pioneer 503. And I'm just like watching it sad that not only is Pioneer out of plasma, but now Panasonic is,
Yeah.
or getting out of. I mean, it's just such a great image. And, we have LCD TVs in other parts of our house, but we love our plasma.
Nothing compares, does it?
Nothing compares.
Right.
And I try to tell people that. But, at the end of the day, LCD can be a little less expensive, or it makes their, Nintendo look even better, or whatever the excuse is. They bought the hype, or they don't want burn-in, when burn-in hasn't really been an issue in several iterations of these things. The LED, LCD people did a really good job of selling their product and selling the pitfalls of plasma. And anytime you would mention plasma to a customer as a consultant or as an integrator, the first thing they would say is burn-in. And it hasn't been true in ages,
And power consumption, and which hasn't been true either.
Right. And so it just makes me sad that this is, goodbye Panasonic when it comes to plasma. I mean, when our 503 dies, I don't know what we're going to put there on the wall. We'll probably end up with an LCD, but a little piece of my heart will die when that happens.
No, I'm with you, because I think that only leaves one glass manufacturer now, doesn't it? And that's Samsung.
Yeah, well, to be honest, if you look in the background of all these companies, I don't know that they were directly manufacturing each piece of the glass and the electronics themselves. I think it's similar to the projectors, that there's only one or two companies in Japan whose names we as Americans and Canadians and whatever don't know, that make all the component bits, and then Panasonic and Pioneer and whoever puts them together.
Right.
So, the pieces may still be out there when Panasonic stops, but it's putting it together well. That's where the loss is.
And that's the key, just like a projector, they might all have the same LCD panel or the same DLP components, but it comes down to the scalers and the processors and all the other components that make a quality device at the end of the day. Because I can put two projectors side by side, and they are not going to be the same image, even if they are the same display components. So, yeah.
All right. Well, something to brighten your day after we've lamented the death of plasma. Friday is November 11th, 2011.
2 days before my birthday.
2 days before Johnny's birthday. But it's also, if you look at it from a number standpoint, is 11-11-11. So I would like to toast, since we won't record before then, to Nigel Tufnell Day.
On stage, but it's very, very special.
Actually, they have declared 11-11-11 National Heavy Metal Day, and MTV and VH1 all for the past several days have been running a lot of heavy metal documentaries and live concerts and things in honor of National Heavy Metal Day 11-11-11, thanks to Nigel Tufnell and the fabulous lads of Spinal Tap. So rock on.
It goes to 11.
This
one goes to 11.
I got to make sure I TiVo VH1 now.
Yes, because you're such a hard rocker.
Yeah. For those who don't know, my hair is down to my waistline.
Your hair is nowhere near your waistline.
It's almost non-existent.
And it's running away from your eyebrows.
Well, they had some good concert shows and background shows on Rush the other day, and the Metallica Monster. Was it Damaged or Like a Monster? Their documentary was on. So some really, really fabulous.
I'm going to
if
see
you're
if
into
they
that sort of music.
if they rerun that Rush. I'm a big Neil Peart fan, so
I've got a good one for you though. Does anyone here remember the Young Ones?
Absolutely.
Vaguely,
yeah.
Yes.
There was, I think the guy who played Vivian, the punk rocker with the studs in his head. They did a series of 3 TV shows for BBC called Bad News. 4 years, count 4 years prior to Spinal Tap.
Really?
It covers much of the same territory.
Yes, but do their amps go to 11?
They do some similar stuff, but there's classic lines like them fighting over what genre of music they are, and them having a fight and getting out in the middle of the M5 going, I'm not getting back in the van till Vin says I'm heavy metal.
But the most important thing, did they have a dancing dwarf and a tiny little Stonehenge?
Or Rob Reiner, for crying out loud.
Right. There's
let's not, Rob Reiner is makes that. Sorry, I couldn't say that way. I do like Rob Reiner a lot, so he created Princess Bride, so you gotta love him for that.
Love. All right. True love.
As you wish.
Hey, now.
We're gonna wrap this sucker up before we start quoting moving on.
We are way too delirious.
With us this week is the Hat Johnny Mota. He is from Visis Systems. You can find him on Twitter at jmota3. You can find him on Rave Pubs. He's one of the Rave Pubs blog squad. And you can find him pretty much anywhere else, but those are the two main places. Johnny, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Broadcasting live in 3D gesture control from the Fortress of Solitude. This is Johnny.
George Tucker, he is from World Stage Engineering Coordinator. He's also a Rave Pub blogger as well. And he has his own website that I am never going to try to pronounce. I'm going to let him do it.
Just go to Tucker Tertiary. It's my Tumblr account. It leads to my T6, which is Tucker's Tuesday Tidbits and Technical Tertiaries. I see, you got me doing it now.
You screwed it up.
I can't even say it.
Remember, the title was an homage to somebody else. I'll have to live with it. And I still
was a
think
nice
that Johnny,
homage.
I still think that Johnny's part-timing as a dog catcher back there. I don't know.
That latest batch was mine. Those were mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are dogs.
They were just cheering for me, that's all.
Yeah. His Twitter is Tucker2s. So, Dawn Meade is AV Dawn. She is also on Rave Pubs. I think Yahoo and I are the only two who aren't. And she
love
also,
you anyway.
huh?
We love you anyway.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
We accept you for your fault.
As many
Somebody
as they
has
are.
to.
She also
Judging.
she also has a website, avdawn.com. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Michael Drainer has a brand spanking new website. Go there, give him your 2 cents, rip him, tell him what you really think. It is michaeldrainer.com. See, that one I can remember.
That's an easy one. Yeah, by the way, post number 1 is up, so stay tuned for more.
Yeah. I'm Tim Albright. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it is TD Albright. But more importantly than anything, for me at least, is to please go by the website avnation.tv. avnation.tv. We have a survey going up, so let us know what you think. It'll be a way for us to change things, give us suggestions, let us know what you like, what you don't like, stuff like that. Stay tuned because we have actually 3 monthly podcasts in the works as we speak. So those will come down the line sometime the next month or so. So thank you very much for listening, and that's all the time we have for AV Week.